But with the entry of the Mahatma Gandhi, once again we see the national movement becoming a mass movement. Mahatma Gandhi, if you look at his early life, how he entered into the Indian political scene, we need to go back and see the early life of Gandhi. Gujarat, Kathiawar, into a Banya family was born, and he was peace loving man, and he was very weak physically, and his father was a diwan in the local Gujarat Jamindari area, and he was to go he experimented with a lot of truth in his early childhood. He stood for standing for truth and non-violence, and his early life itself we have a lot of anecdotes. When finally he had to leave the country, and when he for obtaining his bar at law in England he went and returned back, was not a very successful lawyer in Gujarat, and but a chance came for him, because one Gujarati merchant had invited him to argue a case in Gujarat, because a lot of Gujarati merchants have Abdullah by name. He had some business interest in South Africa. So, Gandhi was invited to take up the case. He went there to take up the case, but there in the process he has witnessed lot of humiliation, racial discrimination. He was not allowed, although he was holding first class ticket in the rail, he was not allowed to sit, because the Europeans came and said, well, you have a first class ticket, but when a European comes into your compartment you should not stay there. He was bungled out from the train, is thrown out, and today there is a big memorial raised on the same spot where Gandhi fell on the platform in South Africa. Finally, he had to get an accommodation, a hotel, which also he could not get, because Indians below race to the Europeans, so he was not allowed to get accommodation there. Finally managed to get, he argued the case, but after arguing the case, when he was returning back, he had to listen to certain draconian laws, inhuman laws passed by the governments at South Africa, which read like this, that the Indians were required to register their marriages in the churches, although they have earlier married in the Hindu way of life. Otherwise, they are warned that their marriage will be considered illegal, and their relationship, wife and husband, will be considered as prostitution, and the children thus they get are also can be considered illegitimate children. So, this in humiliating laws Gandhi was disturbed. Also they required to register their names and carry the name plates always wherever they are going, identity cards. So, against this, first time Mahatma Gandhi has launched a satyagraha in South Africa, and he succeeded in making the Indians there to fight and get their loss grievances retrieved, and made the white government bend their necks, and this success was reaching India time and again. And by the time he was to come for Kumbh Mela in 1950, he was a big news, already Gandhi was a big news, he was popular, he was received well. And then on the advice of Gopala Krishna Gokhale and others, he was asked to go around the country, nationwide tour, and went round, was trying to find the problems of the Indians. And after studying the problems of Indians, he was trying to take up first the issues of the peasants. That is where Champaran, Khed, Ahmedabad, in these areas the peasant issues were taken. In Ahmedabad you find he has took up the issues of the workers, and in all these three early movements against the exploitation of the middlemen in the Champaran, and exploitation by the revenue officials in Kedah, and trying to bring a compromise when the workers were removed from jobs in Ahmedabad mill by breaking a compromise between the mill owners and the workers. He succeeded in bringing success to the demands of both the peasants from the British government or from the mill owners. So, this success made Gandhi a big name in the country, and finally when the India has to participate in the First World War, the British enlisted the support of the Indians to participate in the war with a promise that at the end of the war they would give dominion status. But then for all the contributions that Indians made in the war effort of the British did not keep their word and they did not grant the dominion status. So, our people got angry and they resented against it. They demanded the dominion status, although they passed what is called the 1919 Act, which itself had lot of good democratic rights granted to Indians, but Indians were not satisfied. Also all over the country, when Rowlatt passed a bill saying that if the demonstrations against the 1919 Act are taking place throughout the country, that the people can be arrested without trial. The Rowlatt Act was resented with what is called Rowlatt Satyagraha. As a part of the Rowlatt Satyagraha, we find in Jallianwala Bagh several Indians, they went and peacefully they were assembled there, and General Vodaya suddenly entered into that garden that is called Jallianwala Bagh. It is a garden, without giving a warning, fired at the Indians who are peacefully assembled there, and it took the lives of several people. There was only one entry. Through that one entry only we find the British under leadership of Dyer opened, entered the soldiers, opened fire, took the lives. This heinous act has disturbed the minds of several Indians. Rabindranath Tagore, for that matter, on hearing the heinous act of the British, commented like this, that he has said that the badges of honor, that is, he was getting the knighthood from British, the badges of honor glare with high shame on my shoulders in the context of the incongruous act of inhuman treatment of Indians, of my Indians, for no fault of their being innocent, were subjected to treatment not fit for human beings. That is Jallianwala Bagh treatment. And I, on my part, stand by the side of my countrymen, shorn of all my responsibilities. He said he surrendered the knighthood. Like that we see giving the call by Mahatma Gandhi for a non-cooperation movement. Indians, several of them like C.R. Das, Motilal Nehru and several others, they all gave up their lucrative practices in the law courts, and several students boycotted the schools. And like that you see the boycott of foreign cloth and the Swadeshi movement, opening of the Swadeshi schools. Like that we see that the non-cooperation movement was taken up nationwide. We find in Awadh big movement. Also you see in Andhra the Chirala Perala movement under the leadership of Duggirala Gopala Krishnaya. And we see in another important event taking place in April 1921, Vijayawada session of the All India Congress Committee. Here Gandhi gave a call for raising a Tilak Swaraj fund, enrolling 1 crore Congress members with a 4 Anna membership, and he put a target by June 30th, 20 lakh charkas as a part of the Swadeshi movement. So, like that we find that the non-cooperation movement in 1920, Nehru led the movement in Allahabad region, in Jaunpur, Pratapgarh districts of Allahabad. Jawaharlal Nehru and Mishra asked the peasants and then launch a non-cooperation movement. The non-cooperation movement means not to cooperate with the British. Gandhi said, we do not cooperate with the government, that is not true. He said he applied Satyagraha. He applied Satyagraha. What is Satyagraha? Agraha for truth. What is a truth? What is not truth? Oppose what is not truth. The British rule in India is not truth. So what? We oppose what is not true. And I am Agraha for truth, Satyagraha. I apply it and I do not cooperate with the government which is not true. The British rule is not true in India, it is a loot in India. So, I oppose it. How do I oppose it? I do not cooperate with it. The greatest evildoer will not inflict the slightest pain on you unless you cooperate with it. I do not cooperate and do not get exploited. So, I do not go and work in the law courts. I do not go work in the kacharis, collection of the land revenue in the villages. I do not work in the government offices. I do not go and work in the schools. I do not go and work in the whatever the village level or district level, whatever level government offices. So, we see Bose became the principal of the National College which they established in Calcutta. C.R. Das played a prominent role in this National College. And then you see in Punjab, Lajpat Rai led the movement to make the teachers to boycott the educational institutions. In Bombay, UP, Bihar, Orissa, Assam, Madras, we see the movements were not very strong. Boycott of law courts, dramatic and spectacular movement could be witnessed. Many leaders, leading lawyers of the country, C.R. Das, Motilal Nehru, M.R. Jaikar, Saifuddin Kitlu, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, C. Rajagopalachari, Tanguturi Prakasham, they all have resigned, stopped their lucrative law practices. Caps, dupattas and turbans would form when the train moves. Gandhi took a nationwide tour and he said all these caps, dupatta, turbans could be piled up, and as the train moved, and you see that bonfire, that is boycott of the foreign cloth. And picketing of shops selling foreign cloth was also a major form of boycott. The value of imports of foreign cloth fell from 1 or 2 crores in 1920-21 to 57 crores in 1921-22. Picketing of toddy shops, government of Bihar, Orissa even circulated list of great men of history who enjoyed taking their liquor. They quoted Alexander, Napoleon, Shakespeare, Gladstone, Tennyson and Bismarck, trying to make the people to take to drinks, because people are boycotting toddy shops and foreign liquor shops. So, that is how you see the non-cooperation movement, but this non-cooperation movement has to be called off because of incident that occurred in Chauri Chaura. We find and in Madras, somebody had brought to the notice of Gandhi that khadi became costly, and Gandhi immediately discarded his dhoti and kurta in favor of langot. For the rest of his life, he remained half naked fakir. He insisted the people to prepare khadi. That is why 20 lakh charkas are distributed. Each house become a cottage industry to replace the foreign cloth. Chauri Chaura in Gorakhpur district in UP, we find on 5th of February 1922, the Congress Khilafat agitation, a procession was taking place. Irritated by the behavior of policemen against silent mob, a section of the crowd attacked them. Police opened fire at the entire procession, attacked the police, and when the latter hid inside the police station, the Indians set fire to the station, and the policemen who tried to escape were hacked to pieces and thrown into fire. In all, 22 policemen were done to death. On hearing of this incident, Gandhiji decided to withdraw the movement. On 12 February 1922, the non-cooperation movement was called off, and this was opposed by several Indians. They said, when the whole nation was up in arms against the British, this man has called off the non-cooperation movement. So, they said, we will continue the movement. Mahatma Gandhi said that I am disapproving the non-violent methods like Chauri Chaura. If the British open fires, we will see several Indians dying. Hence, he called off the movement and he retired to Sabarmati Ashram, and then he was trying to build a crop of Indians who would later be used, who would truly be following the Satyagraha movement. So, non-cooperation movement was extinguished by, just as a fire gets extinguished by putting some water in the fire, with the calling of the non-cooperation movement.